At this stage of the NFL season, now in the playoffs, if there are any injuries, it becomes even more vital. The significance of it, the injury analysis and insight, bright and early on this Monday before we end out Wildcard weekend with the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chao. As always, Dr. Chao, we appreciate the time. Thank you for joining us here on this Monday to look back on a weekend and, of course, one final game in the opening round tonight between the Rams and the Vikings.
You know, I love Wild Card Weekend. It's like the opening round of March Madness, right? Game after game. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool indeed. All right, Dr. Chow, let's look back on the weekend that was a dominant defensive performance out of the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday against the Green Bay Packers. Defense, special teams, forcing 4 turnovers. That was the difference. But one of the leaders of that Eagles defense, their linebacker, Nakobe Dean, feared to have suffered a significant knee injury that more than likely, Dr. Chow, reports say will knock him out for the remainder of this postseason. What did you and your team at Sports Injury Central see with that knee injury to Nakobe Dean? What do you think his outlook is for the remainder of the postseason?
You know, before we get to Nakobe Dean, rewind a little bit on Jordan Love. All week I was saying more worry about Jordan Love and his elbow and the nerve issue, especially gripping, spinning the ball, throwing downfield with accuracy than Jalen Hurts. And unusual, the number of picks he threw, and he really wasn't driving the ball downfield. Now, to his credit, he was not blaming the elbow or the nerve issue, but you have to wonder what role that played. I know pregame Adam Schefter talked about it, and even Nate Burleson talked about it and what it is. The news on Nakobe Dean does not appear good. Unfortunately, we don't have specific video on his left knee. It just didn't show on the replay. I think it was the step before he finished the tackle. But, you know, obviously carted off is never a good sign for a guy as tough as him.
Doc, real quick, too, in this game, because I always like the diagnosis of what happens. We hear the term stinger quite a bit in professional ranks and certainly college football. Elgton Jenkins got a stinger. What prevents you from coming back, and some players who are able to come back from stingers?
Well, stingers are like all injuries, a little bit different. Most stingers happen. They're very transient. It goes away in seconds. Once it starts to last minutes, it usually goes hours and potentially days. And stingers can have you numb and also weak. So it's a nerve issue. Thankfully, it's a more brachial plexus and peripheral nerve. It's not a neck issue, but it's a nerve issue. Like a lot of nerve issues, once they don't go away very quickly, they linger a little bit. That's what happened to Elgton Jenkins.
Numerous injuries for the Packers entering the game and throughout the game in Philadelphia. Green Bay season comes to a close yesterday. You can see it there. Let's go to the first game, Doc, of Sunday. Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, big victory at home, 31-7 against Denver. But late in the game, we saw a very zoomed-in look at Allen's right throwing hand in his thumbnail, partially torn and ripped off despite Buffalo's success against Denver. Allen was asked immediately after the game, how's your hand? It's good, man. It's playoff football. But do you think, Dr. Chow, there's any lingering effects to having your thumbnail on your right throwing hand partially torn off for the week following?
Look, I get it. It's his throwing hand. And I've always said the thumb, quote, is very important to grip, the most important finger, so to speak, to grip and spin the football. Very hard with a thumb injury. But this is not a thumb injury. This is a thumb tip and the nail, and it's not on the pad grip side. It won't affect his function at all. I mean, it's football, not even a blip on the radar screen as far as we're concerned.
Doc, as always, in each one of these games, we typically see some concussion injuries. You see Ray Davis gets a concussion, the backup running back here for the Buffalo Bills, and also in that Eagles game, we saw Romeo Doubs. Let me ask you this question because, like, football players, head-on collisions happen so much, but the ones that we see quite a bit, which is Romeo Doubs, hitting the back of your helmet, not actually from a hit itself, but just hitting the ground, is that a worse way, per se, to get a concussion than frontal, or does it even matter at that point? It's just a matter of what type of damage is done.
Well, all concussions are different, and the reason why you see the ground ones coming into play, especially in colder weather, the ground's harder, artificial turf, etc., is the ground is always there in every play. The other person's helmet isn't always there in every play. The ground is always there. But the lesson to learn from that is, look, I am not against the Guardian cap at all. I am not against it. but to say the Guardian cap prevents concussions just isn't true. Could it help? Maybe. I'm not against it. Romeo Doubs had a recent concussion. He hit the back of his head on the ground with the Guardian cap on and still got a concussion because of the contra coup and everyone talked about the rebound effect, etc. Helmets and Guardian caps can never, quote, prevent all concussions.
That is for sure. Dr. Chow, let's get to the Monday Night Football finale of this wild card weekend, the Rams and the Vikings in Glendale, Arizona. The story for LA this year, a 1-4 start before turning it around to win 9 of their next 11. And one of the issues, Dr. Chow, early was how banged up the Rams were basically everywhere. What is the status of LA entering tonight against the Vikings?
The Rams are actually very healthy. And if you go back to that game earlier this season, Thursday night game, they were about to trade, Cooper Kupp and maybe even Matthew Stafford. In that Thursday game, the Vikings came in. That was the kind of turning point for the Rams in terms of getting healthy and turning their season around. So they definitely are on the healthy side. Both teams are not bad. Aaron Jones is fine. Patrick Jones is a different story. But here's my wondering. This is crazy. Not only did the home game get moved from LA to Arizona, we get that, but it's unusual that the home team Rams arrived several days earlier than the Vikings will arrive because they were relocated, and they were relocated with families as well because of the tragedy in Los Angeles. Not sure what kind of effect that will have on the Rams, right? It has to be pretty disconcerting to move like that, et cetera. In some ways, it's great to have family there because of security, everything happening in LA. But in some ways, what does it take away from the concentration on the game? It remains to be seen.
That we will see tonight on this Monday. And to get more field views like that, SICScore.com, SICScore.com. The great work that Dr. DavidChao and his team do each and every week throughout the NFL season. Dr. Chow, thank you very much. More from Monday night up next.